What's up, guys? We should be live. Let me adjust my camera just a little bit. There we go. Sorry for the late start. As I said, we had some tech issues. It was actually a combination of that and traffic issues. I got here, I left in time to get here about half an hour before I actually got here. The traffic was just really bad. So, and then once I got here, I ended up having to restart my computer because everything was just a mess. So sorry for the late start. Thanks for joining us, though. It looks like we've got quite a few people on, which is great. Yeah, so today's topic is about chorusing and shadowing. And if you've been with us for a while, you've definitely heard us talk about it because it's one of our core techniques that we talk about in any of our courses related to speaking and even listening comprehension. So yeah, it's they're really powerful techniques, and I think I think they're really misunderstood. I think part of that is, we could probably do a better job explaining what they are, how to do them, when to use them, and for what. So yeah, that's today's live stream is hopefully a big step toward helping people understand these techniques a lot better. I've got Dr. Ash and Christine here with me. Ash just got to Taipei a few days ago, so they're both in the same room together. I'm going to go ahead and add them. Also, guys, I realize you might need to scooch a little closer to each other in order to show up on the screen. Let me see. I don't think I can make myself smaller, so I think, yeah, that should work. I didn't even think about that until just now. But yeah, so welcome, guys.
Yeah, 可以。
Can you hear me?
Ash, okay. Hi.
Hey.
可以坐过来一点。
All right, we'll get you guys. And folks watching, if there's a discrepancy in the audio between me and them, please let me know and I can fix it on my end. Just mention it in the chat. I think we should be all right. Yeah, so I guess what we should do is start with what is chorusing and what is shadowing and what's the difference? Because I think a lot of people, they see us talk about chorusing and they go, oh, shadowing. Because I think shadowing is much better known. And they think of chorusing as just like a type of shadowing, but it's quite different, right?
Are you asking me?
艾希博士.
So you want me to say the difference between the two?
Yeah. If you could talk about like what are they?
So chorusing, the purpose behind chorusing is to master new sounds or perhaps grammar points, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to do some super intensive listening and repeating. And so you take and this is a question, people, how long of a sentence, right? So I think if you get too short, like 1 second, it's going to repeat so fast that's going to get annoying really quick. So like if you were to hear like tan 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 tan, I mean that just would get super annoying. Yeah. So you don't want to do that. You want to something that's like 3 seconds, 3 seconds and maybe up to 7 seconds. So your purpose is you're put this thing on a loop and you're listening and you're saying it on top of the person. So you're hearing yourself. Ideally, you're hearing yourself and you're hearing the native speaker. And what you want to do is you say it while they're saying it, and the whole time you're thinking to yourself, what's the biggest difference between what I'm saying and what they're saying? And clearly, you can only really focus on one thing at a time. So your purpose each revolution is not to figure out what is every single thing I'm doing wrong. Rather, what's the biggest difference between what they're saying? So you identify the biggest difference. You figure out, I need to change my tongue. How do I need to change the position of my tongue? Maybe the shape of my mouth. What can I do to make my sound more like the sound of the native speaker? and you're listening to this thing hundreds of times. So you're going along, you're listening, you discover the biggest difference. You think of, how do I change it? And you experiment, right? So maybe you think I should open my mouth, and then you do that and it completely falls flat. So then start closing it halfway. Hey, that sounds a lot better. And then once you've gotten that biggest thing fixed, you just keep going. And then you say, what's the next biggest thing that's the problem? So you're constantly thinking about my sound and the native speaker sound, and how do I bring my sound closer in to the native speaker sound.
Yeah.
Now,
And we can do example like 今天天气很好, and you
今
can
天天气很好.
you can chorus me.
Yeah,
I'm the
今天
native speaker.
like,
今天天气很好，今天天气很好.
so I'm going to actually say it wrong on
今天天气很好。
purpose just so I can have something to
Yeah.
correct. So go ahead and do it.
今天天气很好，
今天天气很好，今天天气很好。
今天
So
天气
I noticed that she's saying jing and I'm saying qing, right? So there's a ji qi difference. So then I would start thinking to myself, what do I need to do to go from ji to qi? Now, clearly, if I don't know anything about Chinese, I don't know anything about Chinese sounds, and this is my first time to sit down chorusing, it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to go from qi to ji than if I already basically know 90% of the sounds and I can say them without thinking about it.
Yeah.
When I hit that stage, clearly this exact same exercise I'm doing now, for me, the same person, will be different. It will be much less challenging,
Yeah.
right? So this is kind of I'm sure you've heard this thing, but success breeds success. Right. And that is exactly the story of correcting your pronunciation. The better you get at pronunciation, the easier it is to discover your mistakes and to correct them. So the more often you're thinking to yourself, how do I change my pronunciation to match this person? The more you do that, the better you're going to get at it. Now, the thing that might cause you to kind of quit in the beginning is that you're like, I just can't figure it out. Well, that's why you got to listen hundreds of times. And it's not you. Everybody has to listen hundreds of times. And if somebody's better than you at the Mandarin chorusing game, it's because they've been doing it longer. Or they've learned another language that has sounds that are similar to Mandarin so that they can naturally do it better, right?
Oh, I also have one question to Dr. Ash. So you mentioned that when people are doing listening, it's either you're listening for the sound or listen to the meaning.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. Yeah.
So I think when you are doing chorusing, you cannot focus on the meaning.
Right.
You need to focus on the sound.
Right.
Because a lot of people are doing it wrong. They say, "Oh, I'm tone deaf. I cannot tell the difference."
Because they're not listening for the sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so this is a really good one. You need to. So what am I trying to do in the beginning? And you always go back to the purpose. Why am I doing chorusing? Right. I'm doing it to learn new sounds, or I'm doing it to learn new grammar patterns. Okay. So let's start with the sound one first, because even if you're learning new grammar sounds, even if you're learning new grammar patterns using chorusing, you still need to do the sound part first.
Which, to be fair, new grammar patterns are new grammar sounds.
That is true.
Sound patterns.
So so children, people always talk about how children are better at language learning, right? I don't think that's entirely true, but that we'll leave that for a different. We'll do a live stream about that if everybody's interested in it. But what children do that is much better than adults on average is that when children listen to what somebody's saying, the first thing they do is mimic the sounds. The first thing they do is try to grasp, what sounds am I supposed to be saying? And they don't worry about meaning. Adults, on the other hand, have a natural tendency, and this has to do with modern education, basically, is mostly reading and writing, right? So it's not focused on sound, it's focused on meaning. So the natural tendency is to want, and also people feel uncomfortable hearing these sounds they don't understand, and they want to get rid of this discomfort, and the way to do that in their mind is to grab the meaning, right? But if you're listening for meaning, you're either not listening for sound at all, or you're diminishing greatly how much you're listening to sound.
Yeah.
So how do I get across, how do I solve this problem? Because I need to understand what's going on. Okay, that's fine. First thing you do, forget about meaning. Master the sounds. Once you can say those sounds comfortably and you're saying it, you're repeating it with the speaker and you're confident, hey man, I've done this 100 times. I can tell I'm saying it the way they're saying it. Once you hit that point, change the meaning.
Yeah.
Right? But before that point, don't worry about meaning.
I have another example. 南港展览馆.
Say it again.
南港展览馆.
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 展览馆.
南港展览馆.
南港展览馆.
南港展览馆. See, that's the
南港展览馆.
That's the phrase or the term that you need to only focus on the sound before you focus on the meaning.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, when I hear it,
for that, because most people aren't going to know what that is unless they've lived in Nangang before.
Well, if you lived in Taiwan, this is another thing. Things are very personal. Like if you lived in Taiwan, that's super, everybody knows what that is. Because it's actually not super far from here. I mean, it's a little bit, but
yeah.
Like, it's like I was transcribing Cantonese song lyrics, or rap lyrics actually. And there were a bunch of sections in the song where it'd be like 3 and 4 characters. I had no idea what it was supposed to mean. No idea what that meant, no idea, but I just wrote it down and kind of kept going anyway. And then I went to Hong Kong for the first time, and I saw these were all street names. And the thing that I didn't know was that in Cantonese, when you say street, the most common way, or at least in Hong Kong, very common way of saying street is dao. So the character dao actually means street, whereas I was interpreting as meaning way or something. And like Noi Dun Do is Nathan Road. And like when I'm transcribing these song lyrics, I have no idea what they're talking about. I have stepped foot in Hong Kong and suddenly the whole thing makes sense. And so like your personal experience, it's not you, there's nothing wrong with your brain. It could just be that you just haven't experienced something that other people that understand this have experienced. So anyway, now getting back to chorusing,
focusing on the sound.
Focus on the sound first. Once you've mastered the sound, then move to meaning. So when you're doing your grammar, if you're trying to learn a new grammar point, and even so, well, if you're trying to learn a new grammar point, there's no new sound in it. It's going to be very quick that you've mastered saying the sounds because you already know all the sounds, right? If there's no new sounds by definition. Then once you do it, you're just actually saying this over and over again. And what you're doing is you're burning this grammar point into your brain so that you don't have to think about it. You just repeat the sentence over and over and over again. And then whenever you want to access that grammar pattern, you just think of that sentence and you've said it 1,000,000 times. So it should just rattle off in your head. Right. So then going back to the time limit on chorusing, why 3 seconds to 7 seconds? Well, 3 seconds because of what I said earlier about you don't want to get too short because it gets super annoying. And this is actually, some people might think, well, who cares if it's annoying? You know, if I'm learning something, then I need to go through it anyway. Well, that's true, but you don't want to go seek it out either, right? Because the more sustainable your whole process is, the more likely you're going to keep doing it. And the less annoying your process is, the more sustainable it's going to be on average. So you always want to be thinking of, you know, is there a way to make this more enjoyable? Is there a way to make this fun? And if there's not, fine, just do it anyway and suck it up, right? That's what I do. Right. But if you can make it more fun, then, you know, don't punish yourself. There's no reason to punish yourself by not making it, by making it not fun on purpose.
Right.
There's no utility in that. In fact, it's going to work against you because over time it's going to get harder and harder. You're going to use more willpower to do your reps and whatnot. Okay, so now go back to so now we know why 3 seconds is the short end, but what about the long end? Why 7 seconds? Well, it's based on your short-term memory, right? My whole point is to do intensive listening to this thing. Now, if I'm doing intensive listening and I'm trying to either learn new sounds, or I'm trying to, and when I say learn new sounds, what do I mean? I mean, you're trying to figure out, what do I do with my lips? Is my mouth open? Is it closed? Is it halfway open? Are my lips round? Are they flat? What position is my tongue, right? Is my tongue high up in my mouth? Is it low in my mouth? Is it curled back? Is it pushed forward? Is it touching my teeth? Is it not touching my teeth? These are your variables when you're trying to figure out these new sounds. So if I'm doing that, then I have to be very concentrated on what I'm doing. This isn't something you can vacuum your room and do at the same time. This is something you have to concentrate on. Once you've mastered the sounds, though, of that particular sentence, then later on, you can listen to it without being intense about it. You can have it on in the background, you can vacuum your room and all that. But when you're learning the new sounds or learning the new grammar pattern for the first time, you need to spend this intensive time with it. Now, 7 seconds, basically, it depends on your short-term memory. Because if you can't remember what you've said the whole time, then how are you going to correct stuff? Right? So if you're doing 30 seconds, if you're doing 30, like somebody brought this up in our community, like trying to do 30-second sentence. Well, if you're chorusing a 30-second sentence, you're completely not going to remember anything from the first 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? If you can't remember the stuff in the first 10 seconds, how are you going to fix anything?
Yeah.
Right? You can't. So basically, your lower limit is determined by annoyance, and your upper limit's determined by your short-term memory. Yeah. So that's for course.
It's like if you're going to do a 30-second clip, you need to not only memorize every word that's in that clip so that you can say it, because you're saying it in unison, right? You're not repeating what you're hearing. You've got to not only have it all memorized, you have to have the rhythm of the thing memorized already. And
the rhythm,
start doing chorusing. Whereas with a short sentence, you don't have to memorize it before doing it, because the process of repping it 10 or 20 times, you start to memorize it then. You put it in your short-term memory then, including the rhythm and all of that. So, yeah.
So if you're trying to like, and I've actually done this before, where like I'm giving a presentation in Chinese, and I've written out everything I'm supposed to say. I'll have a native speaker record that. So if you're wanting to make sure you're saying your presentation super smooth, and so this is where our goal now is to actually do a long thing, right? So can I use chorusing to do that? You can, but what you want to do is not chorus 30 seconds at a time. You want to chorus 7 seconds at a time. Once you get really good at this 7 seconds, go to the next 7 seconds, then go to the next 7 seconds, and then switch to shadowing once you've already gotten it to the point where you can just say this stuff super smooth. Because even if you know all the sounds, the difficulty of a sound isn't always the same. It depends on what environment it shows up in. So it could be the fact that you can say like super easily, but if there's a that comes right before the you're leaving a tongue position you're not as familiar with, and you can't get as quickly to the So even though you've mastered and you can say it by itself, doesn't mean you can say it in all environments that might appear in. Right. So what does that mean? It means that even if you're good at chorusing, it still could be the case there are some sentences that are hard for you to say. And they're hard for you to say because you're not used to switching from tongue position A to tongue position B. Yep. Right? So how do you overcome this? Well, you just, every time you come across a sentence in your learning that you find hard to say, chorus it. Yeah. And after you chorus it, it'll become easy. And then next time you run across another sentence, and in the beginning, it might be that you come across a sentence once a day or, 10 times a day. And then as you get really good, it might be a week or a month before you come across another sentence that's hard to do. But if you chorus each one of these, eventually it's going to get to the point you can move tongue position from anywhere to anywhere without having to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's totally like tongue flexibility or mobility is totally a thing you can train by doing this. People have a hard time going between like retroflexes and palatals or dentals. Or like you said, from to like that's a big movement, right?
Actually, let me say something real quick on that point.
Yeah.
And it's not just hard for learners. In Beijing kind of dialect, they actually delete sounds. a lot. And why do they delete sounds? Because it's hard to get from this. Wait, let me get my hand in the picture. It's hard to get from a full retroflex and then flip your tongue all the way to your teeth.
Yes.
It's hard. So it's hard to. There's a physical distance you're having to go, and for your tongue, that's a long physical distance. So even for a native speaker who can do it, they might just feel like, I don't feel like putting out all that effort.
Yep.
And then, it's like in Texas we say something instead of something, right? Why do we say something instead of something? Because it's easier.
Yeah.
And everybody else says it, so it's not like if I were to go to New York, I'd probably not say it as much because I might get made fun of or something. But in Texas, what?
I said, yes, you would.
So
I know how you talk well enough to know that you aren't adjusting for New Yorkers.
Well, I'm kind of a stubborn Texan, so. Well, that's kind of it's like saying the same thing twice, I guess. But
right.
So I was
pronunciation.
No, I know what I'm just trying to remember the name of the street. I was in a cab in Beijing, and it was 学院路, and I was like, 我要去学院路, and the guy's like, 山路. I was like, that might be what I said. 等一下, 学院路, 山路. So I wrote it down. And I showed him the paper, 学院路, 山路. I was like, all right. But why is he saying that? Because he's like, 学院路. And he's just not willing to do this thing. So he's saying 学院 instead of 学院.
Yep.
Which is kind of weird because actually when you say 学, you have to do the anyway.
学院.
So I think he's using the yu from 学 and he's making it the yu from yuan. So he's like 学院路. And so this is another aspect is if you notice native speakers deleting sounds, if you understand the 标准 pronunciation, you can figure out why are they doing that.
Yeah.
Like one a deletion that happens really often in Taiwan would be to delete a T and leave an H. Like she doesn't know. hey, 把它放在那边.
把它放在那边.
So instead of saying 把它, they say 把它放在那边.
Or just 把它,
yeah, that's
把它放在那边, 把它放爱, and then it's 放爱, not 在.
Yeah.
把它放在那边.
Or 多少钱? Like nobody says 多少钱?
Yeah.
And
like if you say that, people are like. What?
And our iconic conversation last time, 温子.
Huh?
I was asking him, 魏恩子.
Oh.
And then he said, 蚊子, mosquito.
I was like, what are you talking about, mosquito?
Yeah. Another classic that I like to bring up is 驾车.
驾车, yeah.
驾车.
Instead of 驾车. Yeah, 驾车. Yeah, so like chorusing can really help you, especially if you're focusing on a specific local accent. It can really help you to learn how people who use that accent abbreviate stuff and what sounds they skip and when. And yeah, it's super useful for that.
Let me explain the ha thing real quick. So the thing that's most interesting to me about that is that in a lot of linguistic systems, if you want to write that something's aspirated, in other words, that you have to, in Chinese, you say 送气. Ta, like you have the, like if you don't aspirate, it's more like da. But if you aspirate, it's like ta. So there's this like puff of air coming out. That's written in linguistics often as an H, like as a you have a
superscript,
a T with a little bitty H. And the funny thing is, like I just thought that was some kind of convention, but then when they drop the T sound, they still have the aspiration, and they're saying it as an H.
Yep.
So there's like in Chinese you say 有道理，这样写有道理。
有道理，有道理。
Yeah, it's not random.
好。
So yeah, they're saying the aspiration even though they're dropping the T sound.
Yeah.
I think before we move on to some of the comments, I have another question. Just going back to very first, when we're talking about doing chorusing and people cannot understand or didn't hear the sound. And another thing is that because they've been used to the fixed mouth shape for their native language, and they're not familiar with different position or what sound can they actually make. Is there any way that they can practice, like being the choir, when we warm up, we need to do all kinds of sound, or if you're a broadcaster, you need to practice every part of the muscle of your mouth to make that sound?
Yeah, so interestingly, Taiwanese people, when they speak English, one thing that causes a Taiwanese accent is when you're speaking Mandarin, you generally don't change positions of articulation, or at least your tongue doesn't move. Like, I mean, it could be that, if you say
within a given syllable.
Within a given syllable. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, just for clarity.
Yeah, it's gonna have to change between syllable to syllable. Yeah. But yeah, within a syllable. So if I say one, like I can kind of feel the going to the back of my mouth, but my tongue's not changing position. Whereas in English, when we say syllables, your tongue sometimes will move in the middle of a syllable. So like
Special.
Well, in Taiwan they say spatial. Instead of but that's actually not because of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can do the Taiwanese accent. Give me a word.
Man, I wish I had an example off the top of my head because I'm having a hard time thinking of one.
Yeah.
I think actually having an N, like in English, when you say something with an N at the end of it. Like
our favorite word as Southerners is y'all. It's one syllable, but it's got a big tongue movement. Y'all.
Yeah, your tongue's moving like y'all.
Yep.
Actually, I think that's why Taiwanese people have a hard time with dark L's, because they won't move their tongue, and you have to actually move your tongue while you're saying it to make the L sound correct.
Y'all.
Yeah, that was correct.
Yeah.
Y'all.
No, because John said I need to move my tone. I was trying.
No, but it was correct. That's
key,
exactly right.
Because we will do y'all just like all, and the tone is not moving.
Yeah.
Normally Taiwanese person would say like yao.
Or just like o, like the Chinese o.
Yeah, pronounce dark L's like O's, basically. Yeah, that's a key feature of a...
Yeah, there's a very strange thing between O and dark L, because video sounds like video a lot of times.
Yeah.
I've even noticed native English speakers saying something that sounds almost like video.
And something with ER, like mother, harder. The sound that you need to curl your tone in the end. So in Chinese, we don't have, well, in Taiwanese Mandarin, we don't have that.
I just thought of an example.
Ours are weird across the board, really. It
ours are
all kinds of
like languages. even because you in English we have like a little kid accent, and the little kid accent is that they haven't mastered the R yet.
The aw sound.
So let's say stuff like my finger hurts.
Yeah.
Right, because they haven't, because curling the tongue back like that's actually not easy.
Yep.
So it's hard even for native speakers. It takes them longer to learn those sounds. But the example I was thinking of is breakfast. So the R sound is going to be hard for Taiwanese person. So they say break. Well, they've already got their tongue in this R position, and they don't want to let go, or it's hard to let go. So they'll say, instead of saying breakfast, they say breakfast.
And breakfast.
Instead
of R, they would use L to replace that.
Breakfast.
Yeah. Depending on the
sound. Because they're not familiar with that sound.
Yeah.
And
so they need to chorus it.
Yeah, that's why. Well, before they start chorsing it, they need to tell the difference. Like So I introduced the chorusing method to my father to help him practice English, who's doing Duolingo every day. But he just cannot try different place of his mouth to produce that sound or to make that sound. He still pronounce the sound that he thinks is correct. So it's kind of like fossilized.
Well,
How do
he
you
has
fix
to.
that?
So okay, so yeah, I mean, I kind of had the same problem with my tones. Like when I arrived in Taiwan, I could speak fluent Chinese basically without tones. And uh, when you're so this is why I harp on pronunciation so much. If I meet anybody learning Japanese, I say, stop what you're doing. You need to learn pitch accent now. No, that's an advanced. No, it is not an advanced thing. You need to learn it now. Stop everything else. Stop learning vocabulary and focus on pitch accent. Now, nobody's going to do that probably.
Yep.
But what is going to happen is they're going to get advanced stage and they're going to realize, oh man, I'm not saying this pitch accent stuff correct. And then they're going to go try to fix it. It's going to take years of a very excruciatingly difficult.
Dr. Ash was right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just sowing seeds so in the future they'll say I'm right.
Yeah.
But the reason I say this because I might like I said, I came to Taiwan, spoke fluent Chinese with either all bad tones or not good tones or something, but it took me years and years to fix that. And one reason is that I'm very stubborn. So like her dad was stubborn, I was stubborn. And you have to fail. So failure actually can be really good. And so what her father needs to do is fail a bunch of times. And after he fails enough times, eventually he's going to go, what I'm doing here ain't working. That's why
fail
failure
in the right direction.
You do. No, you really do. Because if you don't know you're failing, or if you underestimate how much you're failing, then you're not going to be motivated to change the thing. Yeah. So this is actually what chorusing allows you to do. If I'm sitting there listening to a sentence and I'm saying it hundreds of times, I'm failing most of those times probably. But the failure is not random and it's not worthless. It's not wasting time, because what you're doing is if you're doing it right, you're getting closer and closer and closer each time, or maybe on average. I mean, I'm sure, not each time you're saying it better, but on average, you're going to be improving over these hundreds of times you're saying this thing.
Yep.
And you're failing, and that failure is leading to success.
Yep.
Right? You have to go in and like do the thing, and then when you screw up, you just figure out how do I correct it.
Yep.
And you say, I'm not good at correcting it. Okay, well then practice correcting it.
Do it more. Yeah.
Do it more. That doesn't mean to stop. It means you're not doing it enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean so one of the nice things, when a few minutes ago we were talking about, focusing on sound and not meaning, right? The nice thing about chorusing is that it facilitates that. It's like, I think everyone's got has the experience where you say a word out loud over and over in your native language and it starts to lose meaning, right? You go like frog, 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 and you go, wow, that's a weird sounding word.
Yeah.
So that phenomenon is called semantic satiation. So your brain gets to the point that it is completely satiated with meaning, and it starts to dissociate from the meaning and start focusing on the sound. So the nice thing with chorusing is that it facilitates that semantic satiation thing. So after, 10 or 20 or 50 or however many reps, your brain starts to focus on sound automatically, which allows you to home in on that. And the fact that you're saying it in unison really highlights where you differ from the native speaker, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I talk about focusing on the rhythm first, because if you're saying it sort of kind of in unison, you're not going to hear where you differ nearly as clearly. But if you're saying it exactly like rhythmically in unison with a native speaker, it really highlights your differences. So what I always say is like your first however many reps, just do the rhythm. Go da 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 da, right? So Christine, can you give me a sentence, but say it at like a normal native pace, not slowly and clearly?
我坐捷运去上班，我
Okay,
坐
so
捷运去上班。
ba, 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 ba. Okay, that's quite even actually. So one of the things is Taiwanese Mandarin tends to be pretty evenly spaced syllables, whereas Beijing Mandarin tends to vary in syllable length a lot more.
你今天上哪儿？你今天上哪儿？
Say again.
你不认识那个人。
Yeah. So the neutral tone tends to result in shorter
你
syllables,
知
right?
道。
But yeah, so you want to go for that rhythm. What was your sentence again, Christine? Something 捷运。
我今天坐捷运上班。我今天坐捷运上班。我今天坐捷运上班。
So you want to get the rhythm, but you want to, before you add any consonants and vowels, you want to lock in on that rhythm where you're confident you're saying it at exactly the same pace. Now, if you consider yourself musically challenged, it may take you a little more time to get in on that rhythm than it would, somebody like me with a music background.
But just because you can't do it right now doesn't mean you can't do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, this is the great thing about chorusing is it trains your ear over time. Your ear becomes more sensitive to things like rhythm and the target language and to tongue placement and vowel quality and all that stuff.
And another really important part of what John is saying here is that rhythm is super important in pronunciation. So another reason adult pronunciation isn't good on average is that it focuses on only vowels and consonants. But if you want to sound like a native speaker, and if that's not your goal, fine. But if your rhythm is somewhat close to a native speaker's, it's always going to be easier for the other people to understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. So you always want to go. The better your pronunciation is, the less work people have to do to figure out what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Right. And that's in your benefit and that's their benefit. So it benefits everybody.
Yeah. And rhythm is fundamental. I mean,
rhythm is absolutely fundamental. It's actually more important.
And vowel. Yeah, it's more important. You can screw up consonants and vowels and people can still understand you just fine if your rhythm is on point.
Yeah.
But if you've got perfect consonants and vowels and your rhythm is way off from a native
it's hard
sounding rhythm, that's, people perceive that as a strong accent. So it's not about consonants and vowels are important, obviously, but if you want to fix your accent and sound more clear to native speakers, rhythm is where it's at for sure. And intonation. So the steps that I try to tell people to go is lock in on that rhythm first. Don't think about tones. Don't think about consonants and vowels. Rhythm only. Once you have that.
No, go ahead. I thought of an example. I thought it'd be good to have an example. And this is one I've given before, but it's my German friend that I was trying to teach. He was asking me how to teach him something Texan. And so I was trying to teach him how to say, boy, them's fighting words. Or no, sorry, them's fighting words, boy. And he'd be like, them's fighting words, boy.
Yeah.
No. Them's fighting words, boy. And that, I mean, if you were to actually say them's fighting words, boy, to somebody, they would just start laughing because it just sounds so ridiculously off. And the reason it sounds off is the rhythm is completely wrong.
Yeah.
And the intonation.
I have another example.
Okay.
台湾的珍珠奶茶超好喝。台湾的珍珠奶茶超好喝。
Yeah. So you want to go ba 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 ba. Right. Well, I'm doing the
台湾的珍珠奶茶超好喝。
ba 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 ba. Okay, so you want to put that audio on repeat, lock in on that rhythm, and once you have the rhythm, then you can go ba 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 ba. So then you want to get the intonation. So tones, sentence level intonation. And that, again, is going to take probably dozens of reps, right? Now, the nice thing is if you're doing a 3-second long audio file, dozens of reps doesn't take very long, a couple minutes. But okay, so you've done the rhythm. Now you're locked in on the intonation. Now add the consonants and vowels. So then you want to go, 台湾珍珠奶茶超好喝. 台湾珍珠奶茶超好喝. And so, and then, it's going to take you some time to hold up.
You see Rick's comment?
Your trombone.
You said you
I do talk like a trombone, don't I?
Well, for those of you that don't know, John is a trombone player. So
once upon a time, yeah.
Rhythm and what's the next?
So rhythm, intonation, and then after that, you can add your consonants and vowels. And the thing is, layering those consonants and vowels on top, once you have the rhythm and intonation 100% locked in, is pretty easy. And then, but likely, and especially if you haven't done much chorusing, you're still going to notice some differences. But the thing is, you're now locked in rhythmically with a native speaker. And so anything that you say that differs from the recording, it's going to be pretty clear. You're going to be able to hear it really clearly because you're perfectly in unison, right? So if the recording is 台湾珍珠奶茶超好喝, and you say 台湾珍珠奶茶超好喝, right? So you say the wrong tone, right? That discrepancy between the native speaker going cha and you going cha, it's gonna be super clear, right? Yeah. Or if you say 台湾珍珠奶茶超好喝, it's gonna be so clear that you're saying it, and I'm exaggerating a difference, right? But imagine you're closer than that, but you're still not quite there on the vowel sound. You're going to be able to hear it. And then with each rep, you try to get closer and closer, adjust your mouth shape, adjust your tongue position. And then once you're locked in on that, you've only just begun. Because what you really need to do, like Ash was saying, you've failed a bunch of times already, right? And okay, great, we've said it perfectly once, right? Now the name of the game is, as I like to say, don't practice until you get it right, but practice until you can't get it wrong, right? So now that you can say it perfectly or close to perfectly, you want to get another 100 reps in, or something. You want to practice perfectly as many times as possible so that you can really lock in that muscle memory for the sound. And what's cool is, so you've spent your 10 minutes, took you 5 minutes to get it right, and then you spent another 5 minutes practicing it perfectly, right? Tomorrow, you come back, you put that recording on, it might take you 10 or 20 reps before you're saying it perfectly again.
Yeah.
It comes back really quickly. And, excuse me, sorry guys. What's really cool about this, especially sentences that you do early on, but anything that you spend a lot of time focusing on, that is burned in your memory. Like, I had someone that, well, Ash, you and I know, but practice a Russian sentence years ago, a decade ago. And I guarantee she could still say it perfectly. And she didn't speak any Russian. She hadn't learned any Russian. And
she has a good ear, though.
She has a good ear, yeah. But if I went to her and said, "Hey, can you say that Russian sentence?" It would be pretty close still. It really burns this stuff into your memory in a pretty incredible way. So,
so should we address any questions that have come up, or should we switch to shadowing?
Yeah. Let's see.
Before we're looking at the comments, I have a sentence for the PRC accent. 我最喜欢学汉语了。我最喜欢学汉语了。
That's so.
You say
Hanyu.
Hanyu.
Hanyu. How do you say it again?
Hanyu. 我最喜欢学汉语。That's a Southern accent.
Hanyu.
Hanyu.
That's so mainland sounding.
Yeah.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment.
You've been practicing.
Yeah.
Any benefit to reviewing meaning and what should be said and which tones before chorusing to reduce initial cognitive load of deciphering sounds, etc., and avoiding starting off on the wrong foot? What do you think, Ash?
I wouldn't worry about starting off on the wrong foot. And in fact, I would, so meaning, your understanding of a sentence can interfere with your understanding of the sound, especially if you're like me and had all a bunch of, you're just complete mess of bad habits and you're trying to fix that. You really have to let go of the meaning. You absolutely have to let go of it in order to fix that.
Yep.
And the reason is there's a mental process where you've attached the wrong sound to a given meaning. So, and in fact, I'm trying to remember that there was I know an example. So I was helping this Cantonese girl fix her Mandarin. And so in Mandarin, you say 三次. They say 三起 in Cantonese. 三起.
Right.
Yeah. And so she's speaking Mandarin. She's like, and I mean, I'm not really doing her accent, but she said something like, 对啊，我跟她说三起. Like, 不是气是次. And she couldn't say 次. She kept saying chi or chi. And like, so finally I was using English. I'm like, say prince. And she's like, prince. And I say, okay, just say tss. Like act like you're going to say prin and then don't say it and then say tss, prince. And then now add a fourth tone to that, like tss. And she's like tss. And I say, now say san tss. She's like san tss. And we had already written this down in Chinese on the table. So I point to what the san tss, the written form, and she goes, san qi. Completely.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because she looks at the character, immediately she's thinking about meaning, and she already has the wrong meaning attached to the sound, or the wrong sound attached to the meaning. So she sees the meaning, and that wrong sound that's attached to that meaning comes out.
Yep.
So in order to avoid that, just completely forget the meaning. Don't worry about getting off on the wrong foot. Just do what you got. In fact, getting off the wrong foot might even be better in this case, because you want to completely circumvent this meaning thing, focus completely on the sounds. And if you don't understand what it is that you're repeating, then you can only focus on the sounds. It's not even possible to focus on the meaning because you don't know what it means.
Yep.
Right? But once you got the meaning, once you got those sounds down, then you go back and review the meaning.
Yep.
And try to, what this also brings up kind of another thing. So how do you change over from how do you disassociate the wrong sound and associate the right sound with a given meaning? How do you do that? I mean, I don't know the exact psychological thing, but I can tell you actually what works. And I have my own way of talking about this, but this is kind of a metaphor, and like how accurate my metaphor is, I can't really tell you, but it works for me anyway. So here's my metaphor. My metaphor is you have an internal database. And so anything that you've memorized or that you've locked in, right, is in your database. And if you want to change the thing in your database, you got to say it a different way a bunch of times.
Yep.
And if you're not a native speaker, that means a lot of times. So an unmentionable person once told me, and this is an unmentionable person that speaks Chinese really well. They said that whenever they're talking to somebody in Chinese and they notice they make a mistake, pronunciation mistake, when they walk away from that conversation, the first thing they do is say the word they said wrong 20 times correctly. So the more you repeat, that's what goes into your database. Each time you're repeating, it's going into your database. And when your database has more correct repetitions, especially if there's also there's a time limit or a timeline here where if I said it wrong 20 times a year ago and I said it right 20 times now, those 20 times now are going to weigh heavier than the 20 times a year ago.
Yeah.
Not to say that the 20 times a year ago have a zero effect, but they're not going to have as much of effect as 20 times now. So whenever you notice you say something wrong, you want to say that correctly 20 times. Right? I mean, you can do 10, 15, 30, whatever you want to do, but however important you make this to yourself, that's how much effort you'll be willing to put out to fix it. For me, it's absolutely super important. So I will definitely do it at least 20 times.
I was going to say, I think you do 1,000.
It depends on how bad the sound is. Like if it's like a one-off mistake, like sometimes, I don't know, sometimes there's some brain fart that happens, and like I was ordering coffee one day and I forgot what I said wrong, but it was a 2-tone word and I had switched the tones around through some weird dyslexic process, and it looked like you would have thought I had reached across the counter and slapped the 3 people that I was talking to, because they're like yeah boo! And then they all just like totally had this very exaggerated reaction. And I was like, oh, I must, and then I thought about what I said. I'm like, oh, I said those tones, I meant to say this, and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny. But anyway, the way you fix your tones or whatever bad habit you're trying to fix, whether it's your golf swing or whatever, you just have to do it correctly a bunch of times in a row.
Yeah.
And it's that bunch of times in a row that's where the learning actually happens. So here's another analogy that so I'm such a nerd. Like when I worked at NASA, I would go play basketball at the gym on Fridays. And I didn't really know how to play I never played basketball in any kind of official capacity or even unofficial capacity as a kid. So I went out and bought a book on basketball. That's the nerd comment. Mm-hmm. So I read this book on basketball, and there was some extremely good advice in this book. And one of the pieces of advice was, if you want to get good at free throws, here's how not to practice. Don't say, I'm going to go do 30 free throws, or I'm going to go do 5 minutes of three free throws, and I'm going to do something else. That's not the way you want to do it. You want to set a limit. I'm going to go do it until I do it right 5 times in a row, or until I do it 10 times in a row. I mean, you know, depending on how much pain and suffering you're willing to put up with, I guess, versus how much you want to learn. But just say 5. So I'm going to go do free throws until I get 5 in a row correct. And why is that? So say it takes me 20 minutes to do that. Why is that more effective than me saying I'm going to do free throws for 20 minutes? The reason it's more effective is the actual learning doesn't happen that whole 20 minutes. The actual learning happens the 5 times you get it right in a row. That's where the actual learning goes on. So this is exactly what John's saying with pronunciation. Yep. Like doing it right is great, but you can't stop there. That's like I'm going to throw baskets until I make one, and then I'm going to stop. Yeah. Right? You're not going to learn anything doing that. Yep. I mean, you might learn some tiny thing, and if you do that for every day for 20 years, you might get 2 in a row at that point. Yep. But if you want to actually get good at being able to make baskets when you want to make a basket and also under stressful conditions, right? Like you're playing a game, it's not just, you have to be so good at it that you can do it without putting a lot of brain power to it, right? And in conversations like that in a foreign language, because it can be really stressful, especially in the beginning when you're not as familiar with stuff. And also depending on your social situation, like, you know, if a cop's yelling at you and you don't know why, and he's doing it in a foreign language, that's gonna be way more stressful than you talking to a classmate, you know, about buying a candy bar or something. So, but the better you are at the actual pronunciation skills, the more likely you're going to be doing it correctly or something close to correct while under duress. Yeah. And most of life happens under some amount of duress. So, yeah. So anyway, you want to doing it right in a row. That's where the actual learning happens. So that's the stuff you want to aim for.
Yeah. When I was taking trombone lessons, my teacher, it was like private lessons, and my teacher would say, like, well, first of all, I wasn't practicing enough, and he could tell. And so I would screw up, and then he would go, okay, play it again. and I'd screw up again. He'd go, okay, play it again. And then I'd get it right, and he'd go, all right, play it again. And he would make me keep playing whatever it was that I screwed up until I got it right 3 times in a row. So if I got it right twice and then the third time I screwed up, sorry, it's back to 0. And yeah, I mean, it's, he's actually the one that gave me that, don't practice until you get it right, practice until you can't get it wrong, line. So thanks to Dr. Snowden.
But how are we going to? Yeah. Okay. Let's do this question.
Go ahead.
How are we going to let our followers know when are they doing it right 3 times in a row, or you can't get it wrong?
That's a good question, right? Because somebody, maybe it was last week, made a comment about like, or maybe it was an email that I got. I forget, but somebody said something about, I don't think you can learn pronunciation on your own. I think you need a tutor, like a native speaker to correct you, right? And that certainly helps. But the process of...
It helps, but it's not strictly... It'll go faster. Like if you want to get it done faster, it'll go faster, and you'll suffer less if you have somebody...
They can point out what you need to focus on, right?
But it's also annoying when somebody corrects you. So like that...
Yeah.
Like I was going to go give a talk in Korea, I think like 15 years ago, and my Chinese teacher from ICLP, she and I were friends, and she would meet with me once a week, and I'd do my presentation for her. And every time I made a mistake, she'd correct me. And I knew before I got there, she's going to start into me. She's going to correct all my mistakes, and it's going to be annoying as hell. And she's going to start into me, and I'm going to immediately go and get annoyed. And I knew that. And I thought, okay, fine. Just wait 5 minutes and it'll leave. So I'd get there, she'd start into me, I'd get really, annoyed. And then about 5 minutes later, that whole thing would just fall away, and I could take the correction without the annoyance.
Yeah.
So just, come up with a method of just, know what's going to happen, and then prepare for what's going to happen. And then, you can get around the annoyance.
And
get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and it probably won't be as bad as you thought it was going to be in the first place.
It was pretty bad.
But yeah, I mean, so the cool thing with chorusing is, like I said earlier, it trains your ear over time. Now you might not, in the beginning especially, you might think you're close enough, and then it turns out later, maybe you come back to that sentence and you'll go, oh man, I wasn't close actually, because you can hear better now. So just the process of doing this more and more, your ear will get more sensitive. You'll develop a better understanding of the different sounds that you're trying to imitate. So yeah, it is faster if you can get a native speaker, especially a teacher, to critique you and give you the things that you're not pronouncing correctly, so you know exactly what to focus on. But doing this process can also get you there.
Also, if you're not sure,
correction myself.
If you're not sure that you're doing a sound right, you're probably not doing it right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And why do I say that? Because if your ear isn't tuned enough to that sound to know that you're saying the same sound, right, then you're probably not saying the same sound.
Yeah.
Because I asked a friend of mine about his Japanese pitch accent, because I knew he spoke Japanese, but I didn't know, if he'd ever done pitch accent. And he goes, "Oh, I'm not really sure." I'm like, "Oh, sorry to tell you, but that probably means it's completely wrong."
Yeah, that's true. You would be sure if it was quite good.
Yeah, because you can feel it. It resonates somehow in your mouth when you say it right. It's like you can feel this correctness vibrating in your mouth somehow.
No. Bob says finding sentences with similar sounds but different tones helps identify the failure. So yeah, like minimal pairs, right? Minimal pairs can be really useful. Not just tones, but consonants, vowels, whatever it is.
Well, there's a danger with minimal pairs. I would say use minimal pairs for recognizing problems, but try to avoid them when you're memorizing stuff. And the reason you want to avoid them when you're memorizing something is that every time you say that sound or one of the pair, you don't want to be thinking about the other part of the pair when you say it.
Yeah.
You don't want to be having to make that decision like every time you say it. So when you're memorizing, just do one of them.
Yeah.
And don't even think about the other one. But if you're trying to troubleshoot and find a problem and you think it's either A or B, we'll say both of them and see which one feels better. And the one that feels better is probably the correct one.
Yeah. Let's see. It was, what ratio of chorusing to checking your pronunciation do you recommend? For example, 25 times, then review a recording of yourself and analyze.
I mean, you're supposed to be listening to yourself all 25 times, right? Like, I mean, you're supposed to be checking your pronunciation while you're speaking.
Yeah, I actually, like, I think recording yourself can be good, and especially if it makes you feel better to record yourself and listen back. I don't do it, but that's because at this point I trust my ear to tell me how close I am. And not just with Chinese, like I've done chorusing with other languages that I haven't actually studied, and I might not get to like 100%, correct pronunciation on the first sentence I do in Polish or whatever, but I'll get pretty close, and it's because I've trained my ear to the point that I can figure out tongue placement on the fly. I can figure out vowel placement on the fly. Like, so yeah, just doing more of this will train you to be able to hear pretty clearly whether you're nailing it or not, where you don't really have to like record yourself and listen back.
So let me make a couple of statements about that. John has a better ear than most people, so just keep that in mind.
Take what I say as far as that goes with a grain of salt, because
unless you've done a lot of ear training.
Yeah.
But I remember using Audacity, you can see the
waveform.
The waveform, and you can map that if you cannot tell the difference. At least
I find that really hard to use, though. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it takes away from.
And I actually have a master's degree in electrical engineering that specializes in signal processing. So I'm like extremely familiar with those forms, but I find it very difficult to look at the shape of that thing and make any kind of connection to what I'm saying and what they're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think just about the only thing that it can be helpful for is rhythm. You want to see that the dips in the waveform kind of correspond with the dips of the native speaker. But the thing is that the waveforms are never going to match because your voice is not their voice. There's so much more that goes into those waveforms than just consonants and vowels and rhythm and intonation. There's also voice quality, which you're not going to sound exactly like the other person, and so it's never going to match.
You might can see tones, but I don't think. I mean, you're definitely not going to see the difference between zh and ch. Like, I mean, maybe you can, but I sure can't.
You probably. I bet if you had enough recordings, you'd probably start to notice a pattern. You'd get a little spike where the aspiration is or something like that. But like,
yeah, but would you know that the rest of it's the same?
No, and you're not going to know that it matches or doesn't match the native speaker just by looking at it visually.
Right.
Because I mean, it's sort of like I heard an analogy with machining, like metalworking. There's a difference between what a normal person thinks is a tight fit for a metal joint or something versus what an engineer thinks is a tight fit. You're talking like micrometers versus like someone might go, yeah, it kind of fits, but it's a jiggle,
Tabadola.
Yeah, tabadola. And that's like, you're talking about if a waveform is going to match exactly to the native speaker, that's a way tighter. Yeah, it's a way tighter fit than what you actually need in order to have a native accent. You have to imitate the same vocal quality that they have. And even if you go and like find the best impressionist in the world, and then get them to record something that the person that they're doing an impression of has said, it's still not going to match. Despite the fact that anyone listening would go, "Oh, he sounds exactly like that guy," right? It's still not going to match. So those
Yeah.
waveforms, like, not only are they not really going to tell you what you think they're going to tell you, I think it takes the attention away from sound. And
Okay.
like I like to say, you can't learn sound with your eyes. So looking at a waveform is trying to learn sound with your eyes, or trying to analyze sound with your eyes anyway, right? And I think
I
getting
think,
away from that and focusing on the sound is really where it's at.
and the real issue here is discomfort. Like my not having mastered these sounds, and I'm trying to master the sounds, and I feel uncomfortable that I don't know if I've mastered them or not. I think that's really so. The real question is, how do I overcome my discomfort and my insecurity about what I'm saying? And so, like, my ear is not nearly as trained as John's on average.
It's way better than it used to be.
It's way better than it used to be, yeah. So that's proof you can change.
Yeah.
But I don't record myself either. Like, not so much because of any kind of optimization, but more I'm just lazy.
Oh, for one example from one of my students, so she recorded herself, but what I found was that she couldn't tell the difference between her recordings and mine for the tones or the pronunciation.
Even if it was wrong.
No, yeah, even when she's wrong at the beginning. But if she put those recordings for a while and leave that,
And then
come back later,
Yeah.
she would notice a big difference.
Once again, it's because she trained her ear. Her ear was better when she came back.
Yeah.
Or just because when you're practicing, like you do the 25 reps.
Oh yeah. You're too into it.
Yeah, you're too into it.
Yeah.
And you need some rest for your brain
Yeah.
or your ear for everything.
Yeah.
And then come back the next day or the 2 days later.
Yeah.
Check on the files again, and maybe you'll notice the difference.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. It gives it time to marinate in your brain when you come back to it a few days later, right?
That's always important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So recording yourself, I mean, I'm not saying not to do that. Like, if especially, I think recording is most valuable when you're the most insecure. Like when you're the most, like, I'm completely uncertain of whether I'm doing this right or not.
Yep.
Not talking and just listening to the output, right? Because when you're talking, you're hearing it inside your head, which is not entirely the same as hearing it from an outsider perspective. And the recording allows you to do that. But if you use Audacity, it's very easy to copy and paste. So you can copy your sound and paste it next to the sound you're trying to imitate, and then listen to the two. So there's a bunch of stuff you could do. But the more you do the chorusing, the better your ear is going to get, and the better you're going to be able to hear the stuff.
And the less you'll need to
like. And the funny thing, like, so I've been speaking Dutch for like since 1991.
Whew.
Yeah, that's a long time. And I had a fossilized error that even after I worked as a Dutch English translator for professionally, I still had this fossil. And like, I was in Portugal earlier this year, and some Dutch guy was in the same hotel that I was in. And I said something to him, and he said, "Oh, it was something about, oh, you have an accent." And I thought, what did I just say? And then I realized, because so if you ask somebody in Dutch, are you from the Netherlands? You say, "Kom je uit Nederland?" But kom comes from the verb komen. So if you say the whole verb, it's komen. But if you say the I come, it's ik kom. But I was saying kom je uit Nederland instead of kom je uit Nederland. And like, I've been saying that crap wrong for 30 years, and I wasn't even necessarily trying to, but I was like, oh, dude, I'm saying that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I discovered this fossil, even though I think it's because I'm so focused on pronunciation with Chinese or with Japanese that it even applies to these other languages that I wasn't really applying, because I learned Dutch completely the wrong way, like completely with my eyeballs. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So the
that's a good
more,
point though. Like doing this with one language will increase your sensitivity to sounds in other languages too. Your own language, but also like other languages you may want to learn in the future. So
you know,
makes it easier. Um, Mouth position failing and not hearing own mistakes slash being tone deaf. So the most effective way to review for beginners and intermediates to use a native speaker to critique. Oh, we've kind of already touched on this, right? Yeah, I think it would definitely accelerate things, um, but it's not necessary. You can train your ear using these techniques as long as you're doing it consistently.
so if you're still having issues with tones, I highly recommend we have I think it's free, isn't it? There's the two tone combo stuff.
Yeah, there's actually a link in the description of the video. So yeah, it's like a 25 or 30-minute training video that teaches chorusing. I think I even demonstrate it. And then it gives you some like two-tone combo audio files to practice chorusing with.
But it's all the two tone combos, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what you want to do is at least 5 minutes a day practice these two tone combos until you, because the thing is like just mastering or even just learning the four tone or five tones depending on how you count it, it's not enough because the tone contours change when they're in different environments. So you need to learn 1 1 1 2 1 3 1 4 2 1 2 2 2 3 2 4 3 blah blah blah. We have that data. It's free. You can download it. Spend 5 minutes a day working on that stuff until you absolutely get bored because you're just kicking its butt up one side and down the other. That's when you know to stop.
Yep.
Because it's just so easy that's not worth your time. But it's like being a golfer. Golfers don't read about golf swings and then they get into a tournament and they go, "Hey, I'm going to try that thing I read in the book." They don't do that.
Practice it until it's in your
They
muscle.
read the book and they go, "Hey, I'm going to try this one thing," and they go try that one thing like 3,000 times until they think, "Hey, now I think I got at least a kind of a grasp on it," and then they do it a couple more thousand times, and they might do it 1,000 times a day for a couple of weeks until they know.
Yeah.
And so you have to do this with your pronunciation, and that sounds like a lot of work, and it is. But the thing is, once you lock that sound in, it's locked for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's there, so you don't have to it's not a forever process.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion when you're watching that video. Focus on what I've learned from all my students. It's hard for them to pronounce the second tone plus first tone, like 明天. The second tone wave will be not long enough or not deep enough
because
to
they
start.
they do the idealized second tone.
Yeah.
And then there's a gap.
Yeah.
Until the first tone, but you have to actually bring it up.
Yeah.
All
you
the
need
way.
to link there. There can't be a gap there.
It's not
like
明天. It's
明
明天.
天 instead of 明天.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that you can practice on.
Yeah, but there's a lot of changes like that. Pretty much, probably at least half of the two-tone combinations have some kind of change in them from the idealized stuff you learn for the individual tones.
Yeah. Also, just to plug one of our courses, the 30-day tone challenge that we have, it started out as one of our monthly challenges that we only do once a year, but now it's open to register anytime you want. It basically lays out a 30-day program that has you practicing each of those tone combinations 1,000 times over the course of 30 days. Or 2,000, I think, if you want to do the advanced schedule. I think I put like an extra schedule on there that you could, if you wanted more practice. So,
Rick probably did 5,000.
Rick's hardcore, yeah. Okay, so we've talked about chorusing for sound. We haven't gotten on chorusing for meaning and grammar patterns yet. And then we also need to talk about shadowing. And we're already an hour and 15 minutes into the stream. So,
well, I'll just do shadowing. I mean, I think if you've grasped what we've talked about thus far, I think you could figure out how to do the other.
Yeah. Well, can we just briefly touch on it before we move on to shadowing?
Sure.
Just what is that about?
So once you've mastered the sounds in a phrase or sentence that you're saying, then worry about the meaning. Listen to it and just see if you understand it. And if you don't, then learn the words that you don't know and then listen to it again. That should be really easy, actually. Once you've mastered the sound, that's the hard part. Yeah. After you do that, attaching the meaning to it is not that hard.
Yeah.
Unless you're overcoming a bad habit, in which case everything's harder. So that's why you want to. That's why I want to, and why I always tell everybody that, like, if I were to relearn Chinese, the first thing I'd do is I'd spend 3 months completely mastering tones, tone combinations, and all my sounds, and then also rhythm and sentence intonation. That's all I would worry about before I even learn how to say ni hao. I wouldn't, I mean, you can use ni hao to learn 2-3 tone combination. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not. My worry wouldn't be having anything to do with being able to say anything or understanding anything. It's just completely going in and mastering the sound system, because that will help you the entire time you're with this language. And if you do what everybody else does, which is completely dive in with both feet and learn 6,000 words without practicing pronunciation, you're learning 6,000 words incorrectly, and then you're gonna have to go correct all that stuff. And I can tell you from experience, it ain't fun. And it's in pronunciation, like when I got to Taiwan, I spoke fluent Chinese with crappy tones, but I could write Chinese better than anybody I knew. But you know what? Nobody cares. It never comes up. Pronunciation always comes up. Yeah. And so the dude I hung out with the most, he was the opposite. He could write, but his characters looked like crap. He didn't know them as well as I did, but his pronunciation was way better. You know who got praise all the time was him. Yep. You know who got praise basically never because of characters? Me. Yep. Now, I have gotten praise in my life because of characters. Like I was at, I was in grad school and I had to go write on the board sometimes. And I had some teachers make some comment about my writing, but that almost never happens. Yep. Like that happened probably 4 times in my 15 years in grad school in Taiwan. So the pronunciation is the first thing. It's the first thing that people notice. And it's the thing that so a lot of times Chinese people will not give you language credit. They're very not willing to give language credit to Westerners. And even if you're speaking totally in Chinese and they're speaking totally in Chinese, it's very difficult for them to actually believe that you know what you're talking about. Yeah. Right? And why is that? Because very few people actually learn Chinese well enough to where they actually do know what they're talking about. Yeah, yeah. Right. So it's not some racist thing. It's just basically statistics is what that is. Now the easiest way to overcome that is to speak with correct tones. If your tones are correct, they will give you that language credit. Yep. If your tones are crap, they're going to want to run screaming in the other direction. And I've seen this. I mean, not people running and screaming, but people wanting to. Wanting to,
yeah. And it's harder for them to understand you. It takes a lot more mental effort for them to understand what you're saying. And so it's like, of course they don't want to spend much time talking to you, I mean, they might make themselves tolerate it or whatever, but yeah,
I have to say,
exhausting.
Not every native speaker you talk to are
linguists,
a trained Chinese teacher.
Right.
Yeah. They have a very flexible standard to understand what you're saying.
And you're putting them in a difficult position, like in a societal sense, because you're saying stuff, it's hard for them to understand. And if they don't understand what you're saying, then they have to be like, should I ask them to repeat it? And I've literally had,
and they want to,
I've met people,
and they want to gain mianzi, and
they want to, but they can't if they don't know what you're saying. They're gonna, and if you're like, well, 不是中国人, then 我会说中文. Like nobody's gonna understand that. Yeah. Like, I mean, foreigners that learn Chinese will understand it, but native speakers won't understand it.
Well, and there's another thing that I think doesn't get talked about very much. And it's like, okay, you can get away with a pretty strong accent in English, way more so than you can in Chinese. And it's because native English speakers are really accustomed to hearing foreign accents. Right. And so, but native Chinese speakers aren't, because like you said, there's not very many foreigners that well, that learn Chinese, and native speakers don't encounter them all that often unless they make a point to hang out with a bunch of foreigners.
It's also because Chinese has a much higher information density per syllable than English does. So, just to give a very simple example, if I take the word international and I cut out one of those syllables, like international or international or international, right? I can still understand what's being said. But if I'm trying to say 国际 and I miss 国, I have 国际 or
Yeah.
国
我记
So it's like,
without a g.
how are you gonna figure out what that is, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's actually more difficult for a Chinese speaker to understand bad Chinese than it is for an English speaker to understand bad English. And it's not because, well, experience plays a role for sure. The more experience you have dealing with it, then the better. I mean, sure, Chinese teachers are good at it, right? Because they deal with it every day. But it's also because of the language. And like, I'm sure if you guys ever watch Chinese movies, they have Chinese subtitles in it. And people are always like, how come they have subtitles in their own language? And I think the reason they do that is because, in a movie, you got sounds going off, cars backfiring, gunshots, whatever. And so you might miss the guo from guoji, right? But if you kind of have those subtitles, you can kind of glance down and see what you missed, right? Which in English, the information density is lower. So it's just easier to deal with missing a single syllable than it is in Chinese.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, about using chorusing for acquiring grammar patterns, though. Before we move on to shadowing, that's one of the nice things. If you're chorusing sentences, you're going to be internalizing the grammar pattern that the sentence uses.
From those sentences, yeah.
Yeah, and the more of those you do, the more of those grammar patterns you're going to internalize. So even just using chorusing to focus on your accent is going to improve your grammar. It's going to improve your speaking. It's going to improve your listening.
Another way that, real quick, another way it does that is that when you're chorusing, you're training your mind in your ears to listen to what this other person's saying. You're focusing on how are they saying it? How can I imitate what they're saying? What that does is establishes a habit of listening to and copying what native speakers do.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the better your Chinese or whatever language you're studying. Because like I tell people in Taiwan, and this isn't just Taiwan, everybody else does it, but I have my experience here. So in Taiwan, the school system teaches, if I learn this set of words in this set of grammar patterns, and I put these two together, the result is English.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Because what really is the result is Chinese-based English.
Yeah.
Right? Because how do I put these grammar patterns and these words together if I don't already know perfect English grammar? It's going to be based on Chinese grammar.
Yeah.
So it's going to come out.
Even if it's good English grammar, though, like you can put together a perfectly valid grammatical sentence that a native speaker would never say. Yeah. So imitating the way people say stuff is going to teach you to talk in a more native-like way.
Yeah. So you're imitating what they say, how they say it, the intonation they're saying it in, the words they're using, the words they use in certain situations. You'll notice which words co-locate because you're doing the opposite of the average adult learner of a foreign language. And what the average adult's going to do is they're just listening for meaning, and they grab onto the meaning and throw the sounds away. So they're not even paying attention to the intonation, not paying attention to the words being used. All they're doing is they're trying to like grab the meaning out of the sentence, and then they throw the whole sentence away. But if you're doing this chorusing every day, you're training your brain to notice that. I'm noticing these small things. I'm noticing the intonation. I'm noticing the change in pace when they like somebody, I don't remember where I saw this, maybe it was in the community, but somebody was saying they noticed that topic comment sentence, that the way people say topics is different than how they say the comment on the topic. right? And if they're noticing that, it's because they're doing it's likely they're doing coursing because they're paying very close attention to these things. And the more you pay attention to these things, the more details you notice, the more details you mimic, the more you sound like native speakers.
Yep.
Whereas if you're just listening for meaning, you're throwing away all the important stuff, and so you're just going to be speaking like a foreigner the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because so one more quick public service announcement. So how do you get your speech to be like native speaker speech? Well, it has to be on a convergence pattern. You don't have to be there right now, but you have to be on a trajectory that's going to eventually converge with the native speakers.
Yep.
And the way to get there, I bet you know what I'm going to say, is chorusing.
Lots of reps. Yeah. Man, we could probably do a whole other live stream just on chorusing and its benefits. It's the closest thing I know to a panacea in language learning. Something I was going to say is doing this and fixing your pronunciation, imitating native speakers and all this, it's going to fix your mental model of the language, and it's going to give you a framework that new bits of the language drops into very easily, right? So it makes the whole learning process easier because it fits in with a cohesive system. And if you're not doing this and you haven't learned good pronunciation and you haven't been imitating native speakers, you'll have a jumble of stuff that's not coherent. It's not cohesive.
Yeah, I think another aspect of this pronunciation thing is that when you speak with bad pronunciation, or you speak with bad grammar, or you speak with using the wrong words at the wrong time, I think that creates cognitive dissonance in your brain. Because your brain, even if you as a person are not thinking about these things, your brain certainly is noticing that what you're doing is completely different than what they're doing.
Yep.
And I think that cognitive dissonance will actually work against you mastering the language.
Yep.
So that doing things with the correct pronunciation, correct grammar pattern, correct word order, and all this stuff, these things all add up together. As an engineer, I would say add in phase.
Yes.
In other words, they add up in such a way that the sum is much greater than just adding the individual parts.
Yeah, absolutely. Should probably move on to shadowing. Yeah.
So let's just do it real quick. I mean, we don't have to.
We've got time. We don't have to. I don't have to be out of this room for another hour. Obviously, it takes time to tear.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, let's not.
I don't know if I can do another hour.
Yeah, but yeah, let's at least talk some about shadowing. What's the difference? How is chorusing different from shadowing?
Right. So just to recap what we just talked about, chorusing, new sounds, new grammar patterns, sentence patterns, whatever. Learning collocations, even that works too. Because like I said, you're taking those things, and once your first step is going to be always to master those sounds. And once you've mastered those sounds, that sentence, then you're going to be saying that sentence over and over again correctly. But then you can be thinking about meaning, or you can be thinking about grammar pattern or sentence pattern. And what you're doing is you're burning that thing into your brain, so that when you access it later, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to reason through it. It just rolls off your tongue correctly, because you basically it's like those old video games. They'd have this thing they would do when nobody's playing, and that stuff would end up getting burned into the screen. It's kind of that same process. Yeah. So shadowing, and so the chorusing is focused on, like I said, learning this new stuff, and it's also focused on short stuff, and it's limited by your short-term memory. Now, shadowing, one of the advantages of shadowing over chorusing is shadowing is for longer things, longer sentences. In fact, ideally, it's larger than a sentence. Yeah. And in linguistics, they call this discourse level. What is discourse? Discourse is, what words do I use to paste sentences together? How do I paste a phrase, like a subordinate phrase and a main phrase? How do I paste these things together? Does my intonation change? What words do I use? All these larger than phrase, larger than sentence level phenomena like, how do I list off a bunch of things, right? Just all these different things. These are things that you learn by shadowing. So shadowing is a process where, say I take probably a paragraph, or at least a couple of sentences.
Yep.
I have an example here.
Oh, are you for shadowing?
Yeah, the paragraph. Discourse.
Yeah.
你还记得你第一次去健身房的感觉吗？很多人都说，第一次走进健身房，就像进到一个陌生的世界。今天想跟你分享我第一次去健身房的经验。That's actually the content from one of our episodes for the podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, you'd have to shadow this. You won't get it just hearing it once. But if you were shadowing this paragraph, you would notice where do the pauses happen. And I don't just mean, hey, look, there's a comma there, so I should pause. But like, probably in phrases that are longer, that don't have a comma in them, there's still probably going to be a pause coming there somewhere. And that's part of human biology, right? We have to breathe.
Right.
Or at least most people have to breathe. Some people that talk a lot seem to not have to, but anyway, so you're like, for instance, if you have a sentence with all first tones, like due to our idealized understanding of tones, people will want to read these first tones all at the same level. 今天他 whatever, but that's not the way people talk. They're like 今天他. It goes down. Why is it going down? Because you breathe in, you're at your max power, and while you're talking, you're exhaling breath, and so you're losing power. So your output is going to reflect this fact that you're losing power as you talk. And then you take another breath, and then you jump back up to your maximum power, and you bleed power off as you talk, right? So that kind of stuff, you will definitely, if you're doing multiple sentence shadowing, you will definitely be mimicking that.
These patterns.
Yeah, you'll be going. That's one of the things you. And if you've done your chorusing before you start into your shadowing, you ought to already be sensitive to changes in pitch and changes in rhythm and changes in all these things, right? And so it's these sentence level and above, beyond sentence level things that you're trying to learn with shadowing. So shadowing is suitable to much larger sentences, like 30 seconds, because you're not relying on your memory. Somebody's talking, you're just following what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're repeating what you hear. You're not doing
what you hear.
The way you
but not in shadowing though, there's a delay, I think, between what they're saying and what you're saying. So you're not saying it right on top of them, and you're not trying to learn new sounds. You are trying to learn sentence intonation and stuff. So you should be noticing that kind of thing while you're repeating.
Yeah.
Like if they're saying 今天我要去, you don't want to be saying 今天我要去. Like that intonation is completely
imitate. Yeah, you still want to imitate their intonation. It's just there's a lag. There's a lag between the two. Yeah.
And one of the big advantages of shadowing is that you can do much higher volume. Right? If I'm doing a 30-second clip and I'm doing that with chorusing, then I'm going to be doing at least 4 7-second, and then whatever's remaining. So I'll be doing 5 segments of chorusing, and each one of those is going to take a long, do 100, 200, 300, 400 reps, depending on how familiar you want to get. With the shadowing, I could do a much larger, the input is much larger. I can practice a bunch of words, and you can work on your understanding too. But first make sure you're getting the intonation correct. After that, worry about understanding. And I think if you've done your chorusing already, and that you're basically have come close to mastering the basic sounds of Mandarin with the tones and all that, that should already help you a lot with your understanding, right? Because if you've mastered these things, you can say it. It's much less difficult than somebody who hears a wall of sound coming at them, and they're trying to grab pinyin letters out of this wall of sound and then put them together and then figure out which words are they saying and which tones are those. That's super hard to do.
Exhausting.
But if you already know how to say it, And you could say these things very close to a native speaker. You know, it doesn't have to be 100%, but 85, whatever percent you decide that's what you want to do. You'll naturally understand the stuff, right? So you might even have to suppress that to think about the sentence level intonation stuff, which is super, super important.
Does that mean when we're doing shadowing, we need to do something easier, or we already grasp the whole idea of that discourse? Then we start doing the shadowing. Because when we mentioned earlier, for doing chorusing, we want to focus on the sound first, then focusing on meaning.
We do want to focus on sound first with shadowing. Like, I mean, I would shadow to make sure I got the sentence level intonation stuff. That would be my first goal to reach. And once I was familiar with that intonation, then I would probably switch to meaning, and not just meaning, but like I said, connecting words. How are sentences connected? How does intonation change with different types? Like the paragraph that you just read, there were questions in there. Like, is the question intonation the same in Chinese as English? Is it different? How is it different? Right? Like, is she listing stuff off? If so, how does the intonation for that sound?
So when I'm doing shadowing, even if I come across the vocabulary I don't understand, or I'm not familiar with, or the sentence structure I'm not familiar with, I just copy the sound and keep on doing it until I make it fluent, and then come back for meaning.
I would do the sounds first. And like I said, if you don't understand something, it helps you to notice the sound. Then I would worry about meaning, but I would first try to, if there's vocab in a thing of shadowing that I'm doing, and I don't understand that vocab, I would try to like maybe read and see if I could figure out, I would at least make a hypothesis. What does this word probably mean? I think it means this. Maybe even write it down. And this is also another free public service announcement. If you make a hypothesis on something and then you check your hypothesis, your learning is going to happen much faster than if you don't make a hypothesis and you just look something up. Because you're not mentally actively trying to figure this thing out. You're just relying on your dictionary. But the thing is, when you're listening to people or you're reading a book, if you put it down every single time you don't understand something, you're going to be putting it down a lot, right? And in a lecture, that's not going to fly because the person's going to keep talking while you're looking something up. So they've gone through 6 sentences while you've pulled out your plico and are looking something up. So you need to have processes or tools in play, mental tools in place to deal with parts of sentences you don't understand in real time. And the thing is, in your own language, you have that. Right? Because there's probably not a whole lot of words that you don't know unless you go to like, I mean, if you've never studied medicine or biology and you go to a biology lecture, you know, that'd probably be like a foreign language to you. You'd probably be completely lost. But normally you're only gonna hear a couple words in a whole lecture that you don't know. So you can figure out from what other stuff they're saying what that means. But you need to be able to do that. Actually, you know, it's funny because when I studied for the GRE before I got my master's degree, I was actively acquiring English vocabulary. And I think I learned, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 English words to go take that test. And back then I was reading a lot kind of for fun, but I started underlying words I didn't know in a text instead of just reading over them. And I was actually quite shocked at how many words there were that I didn't know, and that before I didn't know that I didn't know.
Right, but
yeah, it was just a natural thing for me to see an English word I didn't know, but figure out what it meant anyway, and then move on. And in English, I like in a foreign language, I might be insecure. I might have to stop and write that down so I can learn it, and I wouldn't come across this word I don't know. But in English, I already know that I know all the common words, right? So if it's not an uncommon word, it's just like, oh, that's a nuisance. Like I don't care. I don't have to be able to say that at a party, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But in a foreign language, you're like, you don't know what you don't know. So you might be like, oh no, I need to know that word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're much more confident in your your native language just because you have all this experience of understanding stuff. And then in foreign language, you're much less experienced with that. Yeah. So anyway, shadowing. Do you look up every single word you don't know? I mean, maybe you can. It depends. Like
So should we suggest that, for example, people who are learning GSM3, that's GSM3, they should still work on chorusing because that's new.
But if there are new sounds and new grammar patterns, yes,
still new.
New grammar,
but
yes, sure, yeah.
They can do shadowing for the whole GSM2 because they are already familiar with the content.
Yeah, and also if they took GSM2 already, right? It's assuming they've actually gone through that whole rigmarole of taking this course and going through all the chorusing and all that. That would be the material that I would use if I'm trying to relax and I'm trying not to do intensive work. I would use that for my input, like my, comprehensible input. I would use that.
Yep.
But for the GSM3 stuff, I would do my chorusing.
Yeah.
Right. But if you've already done that, so this is, another point is that your old material for chorusing can become your later, my input that I'm not really paying attention. I'm vacuuming my room and, doing these things, or jogging or whatever.
For shadowing.
So people can take our podcast series transcripts to practice that method, right? If you're in the, let's say, intermediate level.
Yeah.
The intermediate level, it's probably still a little bit hard for you to understand the meaning. So if you want to practice shadowing, you should go for basic level to shadow that.
Or take your intermediate podcast transcript, work through it sentence by sentence, chorus every sentence until you've got the whole thing and you understand all of it. Now you have something that you can use for shadowing to get additional volume with that same material without it being so intensive. That's kind of the approach that I recommend taking with movies, like the movie courses we've done. Chorus every line that you struggle with, whether it's struggle to understand, would struggle to say it yourself, would phrase things differently if it was you saying it. Chorus all of those. Once you've worked through a whole scene, you understand the whole scene now. You can say all of those sentences, and you can use it for shadowing practice to get more volume with that same material.
So, but this brings up a good point that there are different goals for shadowing. Like one is to learn sentence level intonation. But if you're familiar with sentence level intonation, that doesn't mean you're done with shadowing. One thing that's probably really good is use shadowing for learning new vocabulary.
Yeah.
And so in that case, so if I'm wanting to learn sentence level intonation or above sentence level intonation, I'm going to want to choose a text I'm really familiar with, that I've actually kind of mastered the text, because that way the only unknowns in this case are the sentence intonation. But if I'm doing shadowing for the purpose of learning new vocabulary, then I'm going to want to choose a text that's probably slightly above my level, to where in other words, there's words in there that I don't know, right? Because if there are no words there you don't know, then how are you going to use that to learn vocabulary?
Yeah. Another thing is, I've talked about some of these sentence books, right? Where you've got 8,000 sentences and it's on all different topics. Like you've got a section on animals, and so you have a bunch of sentences about animals. And by shadowing those sentences and doing a bunch of reps with them, you'll automatically learn those words for animal names. And the cool thing with these books is you've got the English prompt first, and then you've got the Chinese sentence after that. And so you don't have to go look stuff up, as long as the sentences are at a level that you've already achieved, and it's just some new words that you're learning. You'll absorb those as you're going, because you get the definition first, right? And that's a different type of shadowing. That's single sentence reps, but doing 100 of them back to back, and then repeating the same set of 100 tomorrow and the next day and whatever. So that's volume over time. but without doing the full paragraphs or speeches or whatever. So it's a different application of shadowing, but also super useful.
I have a comment about the animal stuff.
I knew you were going to.
So in Mandarin, I think learning how to say animal names is probably a good idea. Learning how to write them is not. Unless I mean, if you know 3,000 characters already, then going and learning animal names is fine. But if you know 500 characters, absolutely do not spend any time on animal names. And the reason is there's a ton of very unique characters that are only going to be used in one or maybe two animal names. And if you go learn those characters, chances are you're going to completely forget them before you ever get a chance to use them.
Yeah. I mean, there's
So
some animals that like
dog
we
or
should
cat,
be specific. Yeah,
right,
dog, cat, tiger,
fish.
things like that, fish, fine.
But any kind of
like
specialized
yeah,
thing,
like you don't want to, learn like kingfisher or
giraffe.
yeah, probably not giraffe, yeah. But yeah, I mean it's like sort of basic animal names are fine, but more unusual names or specific species of whatever, you know.
Unless you're the aquarium expert for that.
Yeah, if you're a
Yeah,
zoology person, then yeah,
then go for
clearly,
it.
then you need to know that stuff.
But
But if
as
you're
the
not,
native speaker, I could only recognize fish, 鱼, that character. But any kinds of specific ones, I couldn't even pronounce that.
Yeah.
Not even mention to write it down when I see it. So it's fine. Skip that.
I was at a fish restaurant one time, and this Italian lady I was with didn't know Chinese, and she's asking me, what kind of fish is this? She's pointing at it. I'm like, from the Chinese, I know it's a fish because they both have fish component in it. But I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then this lady goes, oh, I forgot what she said, but something like, oh, that's a cod or whatever. I'm like, yeah, equally meaningless to me. I know it's a kind of fish, but I have no idea what it looks like or what it tastes like or how it's different from other fish.
Yep.
Like,
spend enough time in Japan and you'll develop a much more nuanced understanding of different fish species.
after having eating them raw.
Yep. Yeah. Let's see. We got a few questions, comments. Focusing on sound over meaning fits with the distinction between the content plane and the expression plane. Hence, sound patterns are sounds, expression, and not grammar, content.
Actually,
yeah.
In a native speaker's brain, sound pattern is grammar.
No.
Like, for an example, if somebody says, "He are my friend," like you don't have to be a grammar expert to know that ain't right. And the reason we know it's not right, I mean, if you're take somebody who's never gone to school before, like even they would know it's not right. And the reason they know it's not right is it doesn't fit into the pattern of sounds they normally hear, right? Assuming they're around native English speakers.
Yep.
So this is actually one concept that I try to pound into people's heads, like actual grammar in the mind of a native speaker, not the stuff you see in a book. Grammar rules that you see in a book are actually abstractions of sound pattern.
Yep. What sound patterns are acceptable in a given context?
Right. It's actually a sound pattern. It's not actually some logical rule. Like
他来我朋友，他是我朋友。
你说他什么？
他来我朋友。See, it's not correct. That's why he was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
That feeling that you get when somebody makes a grammar mistake in your native language, even if you can't cite the rule to them, that feeling
right, even if you can't figure out why it's wrong or what's wrong.
Yeah, the pattern of sound doesn't fit.
It's wrong. Yeah.
Unacceptable. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, I like this point though. One should be shadowing unedited speech. Those podcasts are quite structured and don't reflect the messiness of speech. In terms of register, it's considered written to be spoken, which is more formal. Yeah, I mean, for sure, unedited speech is the gold standard. The podcast is graded, right? So it's meant to be scaffolding to get you to that point. But yeah, your end goal really is natural speech, right? So yeah, if you're at a level where you can understand natural speech and you can shadow that, that's awesome.
That's actually why talk shows are good for language learning, because there's the interviewer might be reading off a script or have memorized certain questions or whatever, but the person being interviewed is probably just reacting.
Yeah,
Yeah, which would
slightly
be
more
more
off the cuff.
natural.
Yeah, for sure. But that doesn't mean that there's still no value in doing something that's written to be read aloud, because you're going to run into that sort of content in the language also, right? But
Right.
for imitation purposes, yeah, unedited speech is, aim at the target sort of thing. That is the gold standard.
Yeah, I had an English student when I was in Taiwan, and he said he had read somewhere he should learn that you should learn English via Obama's speeches. Like, dude, that's a horrible, horrible idea. Like, nobody
Well,
talks like
let
that.
me be
It's like,
clear.
yeah, it's like, let me be clear. I want a hamburger and a fry. Like, it's like, no, man, you want to learn speech the way people normally talk. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a good orator. Yeah. And
yeah,
if you want to
yeah.
learn English, orating
If
skills,
you
but
need to
even if
make
you,
speeches, yeah,
yeah, but you also don't want to talk exactly like him either, because then people be like, that dude's imitating Obama.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
It's because it's a really recognizable way of speaking,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
wasn't there something where like somebody you knew, or maybe this was in a movie or something, where somebody had learned English by imitating Howard Cosell?
Oh, that's in a movie.
Is that a movie?
Uh, it was two Japanese guys.
Uh,
Uh, it's an early John Cusack movie. Something dead, something. I don't remember. The plot is John Cusack's character breaks up with his girl, or his girlfriend breaks up with him. He's trying to like kill himself throughout the movie, and then Better Off Dead. That's what's called. But there's these two Japanese guys, and they learn English by mimicking Howard Cosell as like two friends, once very close, now bitter enemies. Like it's like this whole weird.
yeah. Can shadowing be done whilst reading a transcript, or does it cause problems? I have a poor memory and easily forget longer sentences if repeating from memory. Yeah, so you can use it in tandem with a transcript, but this memory thing I don't think should come into it, because it's not like you listen to a whole paragraph and then say it, right? What well, actually, Ash, can you shadow me while I'm saying this next part? It's going to be in
Okay.
English, but I think maybe it'll demonstrate what we're talking about. Um, so the idea is that you
So the
should
idea
be
is that you should
lagging
be
behind the person that you're
lagging behind the
listening to a
person
little
you're
bit,
listening to
and
a
it's
little
only
bit.
by a few seconds.
And it's
So
only by a few seconds. So
what you want to do is
what you
once you
want to do
hear it
is
and
to
have
hear it,
processed it, you're saying it,
have processed
right?
that you're
Now you
saying.
might
Why
miss
would they
certain words here and there, and that's fine, but you just try to catch
tell
up. Yeah. So that's shadowing. I mean, you're lagging just a couple seconds behind. You're not like waiting to process the whole thing and then saying it. So the memory thing, yeah, you shouldn't be trying to memorize it first and then repeating it. Um, Now you can vary the amount of lag. You can try to stick really closely to it, or you can hang way back. Those train different things, and you know another thing that when you get to a pretty high level, one thing that a lot of conference interpreters will do is they'll lag way back and they'll paraphrase. So they'll listen for bigger chunks of meaning and then paraphrase what they just heard. Um,
And they
or
actually they use shorthand
yeah,
to kind of make notes. So they're not just like only listening and then translating. They're like John and I actually took a class from a
yeah,
guy that's really good at interpreting. He showed us how to do that.
yeah, and yeah, you can do other things like you can uh, work on your expressive flexibility by like, okay, I'm gonna shadow this, but every adjective I'm going to try to switch for a synonym, right? So you're like reaching for different descriptive words that have a similar meaning. Um, that you need to be pretty advanced, I think, to to be doing that and to benefit from it.
I was just wondering, could I do that?
Right. Well, I mean, I think if you went back to that interpretation class and got back into the swing of it, then yeah, you could. But that's an advanced skill. I mean, but it's like something you can use if you're getting to that level and want to work on your
I think
flexibility.
I'd want to do some. I'd need to read more Chinese literature. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not particularly good at that because there's a lot of these descriptive words. Like I'm like really good with prose. You know, like Chinese prose is fine, but like
yeah,
literature has a lot of vocab I'm not as familiar with.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the cool things about shadowing is you can use it from the time you're a beginner and you're shadowing short little sentences and learning grammar patterns and phrasing and all that, and it'll take you all the way up to like a near native level, and you can still get a lot of benefit from shadowing by varying the way that you're doing it.
I mean, you could even in English, like if you're an English speaker, you could get benefit out of shadowing English. If you're trying to like say, I'm changing career fields and I want to know, I want to talk like people in this field, you know, get, uh, you could shadow spoken books or whatever in that area,
Yeah,
or learning vocabulary in that area, or learning, some kind of specialized knowledge. Because this is a kind of a thing I talk about from time to time is memories created via speaking are different than memories created via reading and writing. So if I want to remember something, I could use memory techniques. I could read about it. I could also speak about it. And these all kind of work together to help you remember it. Um,
So I actually use shadowing to learn the PRC accent, to
yeah,
practice different accents.
sure, Ma.
Sure.
yeah. You totally can. Actors also, if they have to learn a new accent for something they're acting
Yeah.
in, chorusing and shadowing is really powerful for that too. Um, yeah, like we've said, it's a panacea. These two techniques will fix so many issues in your language learning, um, and take you to higher levels of fluency faster. So, um, is there anything else you guys want to cover about this before we wrap up? We need to wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Um,
Anything about next week?
oh yeah, what is our from the keeper of the live stream schedule, Christine? What's our what's our next topic? Oh,
uh,
yeah, okay. Our next topic, we'll have to figure out if we're going to be able to do it or not. I'm not sure. Um, we are going to be, if anybody's in Taipei or in Taiwan, we're going to be in Taipei at the Polyglot Conference next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Um, we would like to stream from the conference, but we have to figure out, I think, once we get there, whether that's even going to be doable. But I think it'd be fun to like maybe film us talking to people in Chinese, getting learners to come over to the table and stuff. So we'll have to figure out whether it's feasible at the venue or not. If so, then we'll try to do a live stream from the venue. If not, we might have to skip next week. But we'll figure
we
it out.
can also do all three of us in one space, in the same space,
Yeah.
to do a live stream.
Yeah, John could stand right behind us.
We can rotate.
Well, and this way it'll be easier because we won't have the split screen thing, so we'll have a little more
Oh
space.
yeah.
Cool. All right. So yeah, we'll if we're able to do it, we'll send out a notification Monday like we normally do, and if not, then we'll see you guys the following week. So, all right.
What's the topic?
Yeah. What's the topic for the next week after that, Christine?
We're going to talk about live streams.
We're gonna have a live stream about live streams.
We want to talk about reading. If we finish coursing and shadowing, we want to talk about the reading skill.
Reading. Okay. Cool. So that'll be the topic the following week, 2 weeks from now. All right, guys. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate
Yeah.
it. They're a lot of fun. Hopefully, it's been useful. Assuming you're in our course community, or in our not our course community, but in our community. If you've got any questions about today's stream or whatever, please post about it. Tag us. We'll be happy to come in. I'm sure there's plenty more that we could cover. We could probably explain some of these things better than we're doing still. So, yeah, your questions help us know what to cover in these live streams. So,
Will this be posted in the community?
this video?
Yeah.
We can. We haven't done that for the previous ones, but we can do it.
Well, that'd probably be a good idea.
Put it there for people to watch there and then comment on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Cool. Yeah, we can do that. All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Like I said, let us know in the community if you have any questions or think of anything later on that we haven't covered. So, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week. And thanks to Christine and Dr. Ash for doing this too. And I'll see you guys Sunday or Monday.
Yep.
All right,
Thank you.
See ya.
Yep.
All right.